Thanks for joining us as we examine the life of King Fernando III of Castile, otherwise known as
the only Spanish king to be canonized as a saint.
My name is John Newton, science fiction author and historical fiction author, and I'm joined today by
Eric from your brother in Christ.
So who is King Fernando III of Castile? He is a medieval crusader. Isn't he one of those bad guys, one of those European bloodthirsty colonizers? Well, let's see.
Not so much.
Not so much. We're examining the book Defenders of the West by Raymond Ibrahim and the Christian heroes who stood against Islam. The link to the book is in the description of the video, as well as other links to his books and to my books as well. So before we get started, subscribe, like, and share. Why would you do that before the video gets started? Because
you're not.
Generally, you forget after. I do it all the time. I'll forget.
You're not foolish. That's the answer.
I guess so. You can
not foolish.
Unlike if you feel that angry about this video, really hate it, you can unlike it afterwards. So
just leave it.
So
it's too much work.
Just like it out of spite. Just because you're gonna really stick it to me and like it, and then really stick it to me and subscribe. So there, prove it. Then if you have any thoughts or comments about this video, please drop them into the chat. I check the chat during the live stream, and also it helps after the live stream as well. I look for those and try to respond to that as much as possible. So let's dive in. We took a poll, and actually a couple of polls. Which aspect of King Ferdinand III's life do you want to learn about most? And the responses were pretty evenly split across this. 17% said his piety and path to sainthood. 22% said victories over the Almohad Empire. 33% said how his mercy shaped his conquest, and 28% said lessons for today's culture wars. And I didn't know what image to put for culture wars, so I put that one down, and we'll see what happens. So
facts don't care about your poll.
Facts don't care about my poll. That is very true. Yeah, so statistically, these are pretty much even across the board. This is something that we're going. And with that, there is a question that was asked with this video that when it came out. Who would at what point is mercy a strategic aspect of warfare? And I'm not talking about a Machiavellian sense. I'm saying, is it a good thing to have in that? And generally, we think that, okay, there's a point where we want to have mercy in life. But then in warfare too, is there a place for it? Or is it like war? It's totally out. It goes out the window. So we asked that for in the second chat. Excuse me, the second poll said, if you can read the teeny tiny little text here, it says, do you think mercy can be a strategic advantage in warfare? 70% said yes. 30%
depends.
Said no. And that's what your answer would be. It depends.
I say it depends on the enemy.
What? Okay.
How are they going to view it?
How are they going to view?
Are they going to war solely because they think that you're a weak-willed, flippy, floppy bunch of people who just give mercy out left and right, and we can do whatever we want?
Take advantage of it?
Or are they honestly going at it and will respect mercy? What is the culture you're fighting against? That matters.
That is a good question, and I'm going to check the chat. It looks like we've already got some things rolling here. That was some of the questions that were asked or put up on this poll. If you haven't answered the poll, go ahead and throw your answer in for both these polls. Why not? Or if you want to change your answer for whatever reason. So the a couple of the responses were Carol B said they're the better choice, the choice they wish could win, particularly for civilians. It's a tough call.
Yep.
So where does mercy come in for that, for civilians?
So for civilians, being able to say we don't want extra casualties. We're not here for blood, which is a major distinction between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a question of what is that mercy turn towards? Is it turn towards the civilian population? After war, sure, mercy overfloweth. But during war, you got to measure what exactly you're doing. For example, if during a siege you decide, oh, I'm just going to be merciful and send food in, that would be stupid.
Yeah. And King Fernando, the sieges were pretty much his way of the modus operandi during his campaigns. He went through and siege after siege after siege. Actually, the besiegers also suffer physically during that time, because where are they getting their supplies? Is there scurvy in the camp? Is there all sorts of other things? So they did suffer that, and he suffered himself. He almost lost his life after during one campaign too, and it had repercussions that ended up ending his life prematurely.
Now, if you let it known among your enemies that, hey, if you just basically surrender, I'm going to be extremely merciful. I'm going to, give you guys food. It's going to be very nice. There's going to be a lot of accommodations. This will be a fantastic time. If you resist me, on the other hand, well, I'm probably just going to wipe you guys out. It's going to be horrible. So you either get the good option, which I'm very nice, or you get the really bad option where I'm not so nice.
And there might be rebellion in the ranks if those in charge in the city are holding the line, and everybody else says, okay, it's enough. We're eating shoe leather now. We've got it.
You surrender, we can get along.
But if you have the reputation of killing all the people that you capture, no one's going to want to surrender.
That doesn't work. That's the opposite of it. That's where brutality goes too far.
Right.
And actually works against you.
Right. So one of the there's another one that we had in the poll that I want to get to, another chat, but I'm going to pull one up from the current chat, and this is salutation. So this is Thomas Hawley said, does mercy necessarily depend on who's receiving it? It's often more benefit to the one giving than to receiving it.
I was talking from a tactical standpoint, not from spiritual.
Yeah, I think you're on an individual level, probably, Thomas. I think you're probably right, but we're thinking in terms of warfare. So I'm not sure. It's often more benefit to the one giving than receiving. In some ways, it could be if you have a reputation of keeping to your word on cities that capitulate during a siege.
Yeah.
And the next one knows to say, hey, yes, they do let us out. We're going to have to relocate where there's going to be, some repercussions, but they're going to assist in this. We can sell the property or whatever. If they're merciful in that regard, then the reputation might precede you. Or the other way around. If you got a reputation, like there were some things we were talking about during El Cid, that some of the Muslims made it look like they were cannibals to strike fear in the Christian.
Yep.
And so that would be the opposite. I'm not going to
surrender. I'm going to fight to the last man. What you don't want to do is put them in a last stand scenario where it's like, I have to fight no matter what. Give them an opportunity out. Give them an easy way out that's much nicer than the alternative, and even might be nicer than their current situation anyway. So if you're known for going in and setting up your government, and it counts on who you're going against, what culture you're going against. If it's a similar culture,
they might go through. But if it is a culture that is based on lies and deception, where that type of thing is honored,
it doesn't work so well.
It doesn't. Okay, so I got some other comments just in time. I should probably read some of these before I put them up there. Says, if you're fighting Muslims, it's a bad idea. Now, why is this? You're just being...
It counts on what Muslims.
That's true.
It counts on the culture. If you're talking about fundamental Muslims, yes. Well,
it still does depend on the culture.
Because if the whole point of their objective is, hey, I want to die in jihad, and you're well known for taking your prisoners and basically just relocating them somewhere, or even worse, making them eat pig, they definitely don't want to get captured by you and fighting you would be a bad idea. Definitely if you have like pig blood bullets.
Okay, so in general, though,
Just
let's he has a follow-up comment here, but I just want to pull this apart a little bit. If you're fighting Muslims, it's a bad idea. Why do you say when you say fundamental, you're talking about ones who follow the scriptures?
One that follows the scriptures very tightly, who know that the only guarantee to paradise is through death in jihad. Then yes, you're just fighting people who are already at the stage of last stand.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no real option in that matter.
No.
Because you can't really offer them in their brains, they are going to get heaven by fighting you. You have to make it worse fighting you than what they're promised in general.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about this when we were talking about El Cid. And I put the link for El Cid up here. It's not here now, guys, but it will be later. For the El Cid, when Valencia capitulated to him, and it was a mostly Muslim city, when it was under siege, and when they capitulated, they said, "Okay, we'll follow you." But what is the problem with a Muslim majority, or even a large minority, being under the rule of a non-Muslim?
If they know the scriptures, they know what the Quran and the Hadith actually teach, they will wait to just rebel at the earliest convenience, because that is what's taught.
But if they give their word and say
that word means nothing.
If they're supposed to be honorable people, right? And they give their word and they say we will not. What was that word?
They can lie, they can deceive. Whatever benefits Islam is obligatory, you have to do it.
So there are certain rules that can be, you can lie under these certain conditions, and there's 3 of them. And there's even not only you can, but you have to.
If it would help promote Islam, you have to lie. If you can deceive the unbelievers, you're perfectly fine, because even between believers themselves, they can do it. That's to see such an issue within it that they have to have a special ceremony where they call down the will of Allah upon the liar to have him die within a year in order to keep their word.
Okay, so let's follow up a little bit here. He says,
Adam.
They say Neanderthal man is extinct. I say you can find them all over. Okay. Well, we'll just keep on going. So let me just say that there are people that are following Islam. I see that. Oh, great. There are people that are following Islam that can be brothers and sisters in Christ. And that is my hope and prayer. And it's not a racial thing. It's a belief thing. And if they give up Islam and follow Christ with all their heart, they're on the same level of every other Christian. We're all one in Christ. There's no slave nor free, no Greek nor Jew. We're male or female. We're all believers in Christ. So that's where that difference would be. It's not so much this. So let's see. Okay. I want to make sure I hit some, and we need to keep moving. So if I don't hit all the comments, my apologies here. It's nothing really on you. It says, in war, you can simply lie. As Muhammad said, war is deception.
There's some truth to that. There is an element of deception within war itself.
I think he got together with Sun Tzu on that one, didn't he?
Yeah, a lot of times some of the best tactics is deception, but not necessarily direct lying. I think of World War II with the inflatable tanks that were just basically the Allies had inflatable tanks that they put out there, made it look like there were people. There's this whole army of tanks ready to invade this one section. So
it's even in the Old Testament, there was different things that were done in terms of warfare and letting your enemy think that there's something else that's happening.
Yes, again, that's all in the end of reducing casualties. Whenever Christians do it, the point is to reduce casualties. Where even if we look back at biblical, I'm thinking The guy, man, now I can't remember.
Gideon?
Gideon. Thank you very much.
Wow,
Gideon.
I was on that one. How many of you thought of Gideon at the same time?
Well, I've referred to him before because, yeah, it's great tactics. You break the jar, you get everyone yelling. Suddenly there's mass panic and the enemy basically kills themselves. Where you don't, the friendly casualties, again, trying to keep death low, it worked extremely well.
So we have a follow-up comment from Adam. He said, and Muslim is supposed to always be in war with non-Muslims.
Yep.
So there are 2 houses, right? Or is it 3? I think there was
House
2.
Two.
Two houses.
House of Islam and House of War.
House of War. So
you're either at war or you're in a Muslim nation. Okay.
So yes, and then follow up here. I think we're on the same wavelength. I just want to make sure that we're communicating. So yes, and then they are Christians. Okay, so jihad equals holy deception. Is that like holes in the narrative? Holy? Is that another type of holy?
No, that's definitely like their desire to be righteous. They have to lie in order to do it. You can even see that with just Dawa itself. How much of it? I mean, seriously, even Ali Dawa has admitted to it, where he's talked about the Dawa people, the Dawa boys, just being scum. They're horrible. They're, don't trust them. We will lie to you. We'll gaslight you. And it just goes, he goes on to this long, there's a video about him doing it where he just goes on to this long list. And it's like, geez, okay, well, you're not selling very well.
No.
Without me being able to trust you. And even the reason why he converted to Islam to begin with, Ali Dawa, he now admits is just absolutely debunked. It's just all garbage.
Isn't the scientific miracles? The scientific miracles, yeah.
Yep, he admits that they were just it was all scam. And that should be an issue.
You know what? I think, okay, so I'm going to go out on a limb here. You guys might disagree with me that we're way off not talking about Fernando, but we will get back to Fernando. In terms of his confession that the scientific miracles, which were what made him a believer in Islam.
Yes, one of the key elements making him believe.
The key elements. If he says, well, it's all bunk down. Did he outline what made it say, listen, I understand that's not true. It's like somebody say, okay, if what brought me to Christianity was the Shroud of Turin, and then I found out the Shroud of Turin is not really authentic, then say, but the resurrection of Christ is solid, and that's what makes me, and the fact that his sacrifice washed my sins away, that's what I can rest my salvation on. Even though that got me there, that's not really what was key, and that wasn't it. And I'm not saying the Shroud of Turin isn't authentic. I'm just using an example. If he comes out and says, there's even something better that I found.
He says there's something better that he now believes in, but he doesn't say what it is. It's a fill in the blank.
No argument.
He just says that even though I was let in here and this was all a lie and there's all deception, I found something better. Therefore, we're told not even to say we believe, but to say that we submit.
Yeah.
So belief doesn't even play a role in it. It's just blind submission.
So I'm going to go over a couple more comments. I'm sorry, guys, but we need to keep going on this because we only have 14 hours in our live stream tonight. So
14 hours.
Surprise. No, we don't. So we got to keep it tight. Ex-Muslim making Christians, since most of them have given up their whole family, friends, and community.
Yep.
Making amazing Christians. Yes.
Because they have to take on that cross. They see the immediate cost of the cross, and to make the decision, no, God is worth it, regardless of what it personally cost me.
Yeah.
That is honestly a lot more than what if an atheist converts to Christianity or something along those lines. I mean, you could have some separation based upon that even then, but not to the same level of hatred as well as outright calls for your death.
Right. I don't know if I've heard a whole lot of atheists say to an atheist who became a Christian, I'm going to kill you.
No.
So that's not on their list. But there's a lot of respect, I guess, to those. I would have a lot of respect to a Muslim who has faced, ex-Muslim, who has faced those type of repercussions. Given up. And he'd given up a lot. And Jesus said there's, for anyone who has given up family members and all these different things here, you will receive a 10, 100-fold in this life. not just in the life to come, but there is. And I've seen that with people that have given that up and have, I'm thinking of a couple people in particular, they now have such a larger community behind them than what they originally did. It's awesome to see.
Yeah.
A couple more, and then I do want to hit Joshua Wooden had a comment in the poll that I want to be able to share with you guys too, and making sure there's not with this one. Okay, got that. Because they know what they have left and what they have found, even the threat of bare minimal losing all inheritance. Yeah, they really do put it on the line, losing it all for Christ, even their own life.
Yep, put it all down. And that's what Christ calls every Christian to do. They just get a head start on all of us.
Yeah.
They really do. And it's
a tad bit of jealousy here that I'm sitting thinking.
Yeah,
I'm not asking for that level of persecution. But still, there's a lot of respect that goes with it. So Josh Wooden said in the poll, he had a comment, he says, "Oh, this is a tricky one." And again, this is the poll that says, "Do you think mercy can be a strategic advantage in warfare?" He said, I can't.
He said can be. I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. The answer would be yes, it can be.
Can be. Okay. I can't vote. This would be on a case-by-case basis. I'm willing to empathetically vote yes. I said, I'm not willing to empathetically vote yes or no. Great polls make people have to think. Yes, I like those have to think. So would this be, if anybody is a father or mother that is listening to this, you know what this is like. It really is a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
That's on an individual level. Now you take a group of people, and that's even harder to judge, because a certain percentage may say we're going to rebel at the earliest moment we have, and a certain percentage may say no.
Well, like, for example, looking back at some wars that this would definitely apply to, the 100-year war between England and France, which, if memory serves, wasn't actually 100 years, but they like calling it a 100-year war anyway. Mm-hmm. But that right there, mercy could abound in that between the two, because again, you have similar enough cultures that they're not based on deceit and lying. You have that. Now flip around again, go back earlier on, the Viking raids, where the Vikings were coming down and having wars against England and fighting them and pillaging and plundering. Individually, the mercy might work on individual level, but as far as a culture goes, not so well against the Vikings coming down.
Oh, yeah.
Because they want the bloodshed, and they're coming down because they think that you guys are weak. The Christians were weak. They were pathetic. They had the nailed God on the cross, and that was it. Their God is dead. So therefore, our gods are strong. That's why we are winning and why we're killing all the Christians. That right there is, mercy might not appeal so well against them. Although a lot of them were driven by greed. So what France did was kind of smart.
So the Romans viewed Christians as just being nuts. Ancient Rome.
Yes.
And they could understand the Jews a little bit more, because the Jews fought back. You had Messiah and all that kind of stuff. Eventually they said, "Oh, enough. We're tired of this." But they could understand the Jewish population more. Christians, one God, cross, this whole thing is just, no, it doesn't work. But their approach, the Christian approach, eventually won them over.
Yeah, so that in that case, it wasn't that the Christians had power or were fighting in wars. It was that we were evangelizing. And in that case, it's different again, because you're dealing with an individual basis. You're dealing with the people on that level. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. The people were converted through mercy and grace and through the call of the Holy Spirit. So that helped migrate it over, but that wasn't necessarily a war. That was just a peaceful transition, at least on one side. They were killing them on the other side.
That's true.
But
that's true. So I want to, Protestant Believer put this up, and I thought it was pretty good. He says, you have kids, one you want to put through college, one you put through college, the other one you put through the wall. So yeah, I understand that totally.
I mean, if you're looking at it in kids' ways, yes. And discipline works different between kids. One, you look at the wrong way, they cry and do whatever you tell them to do. The other one, no matter what you do, they don't like it. So you decide eventually that you find out what they don't want, what works, and then use that.
I think you're speaking from experience. Got a couple of quotes here. Quote attributed to George Orwell or Richard Greener. It depends on where this originally comes from. We don't know exactly where this quote comes from. It's been attributed to both. People sleep peaceably in their beds at night only because rough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf. So this is a comment about violence being a necessary ingredient in our society today. In other words, you can, if you're in a peaceful society for the most part, even if you're the most behaved society on earth, and I don't want to name names, but I'm thinking Japanese culture here because it's so, maybe not, maybe I could be totally wrong, but I'm talking about living there in Japan. I'm not talking about World War II Japan or anything like living there in Japan today in Tokyo. People just tend to obey the laws pretty strictly, but you do have people that are going to break it. So you have to have people that are going to defend you from those people that are just nuts. And those are the policemen, right? So there is a place for violence. And I want to hear from the veterans here. Anybody listening who's a veteran, please chime in, because the whole concept of mercy here, when you're bringing this, when you're talking about warfare, is there a place for it all? Like what you were talking about.
Can be. It can. Depends.
It's a tool.
It can work. Knee-jerk reaction for Christians is, of course, give mercy, give mercy, give mercy. In warfare, sometimes giving mercy will lead to greater harm. In that case, withholding mercy for the good of those who are even not receiving the mercy is the correct call.
Jesus said, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy." Right?
Right.
Matthew chapter 5. So there is an ingredient for doing that, but is mercy always there? C.S. Lewis, in his letters to Malcolm, chiefly on prayer, letter 22, paragraph 13, said, "Mercy, detached from justice, grows unmerciful. True mercy is always rooted in the reality of God's judgment."
Yep.
You cannot separate the two. Mercy goes with justice.
And that's where it actually really comes down to, because again, it's in a lot of the cases that we've been talking about, it's our judgment of what is merciful and what isn't merciful. In the same case, you could say, well, if someone's terminal, the merciful thing might be to go ahead and end their life. They're terminal, they're going to die anyway. There might be some discomfort.
Yeah,
so the mercy would be to do that.
That mercy killing, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
That's an entirely different subject.
Yeah, what I'm saying is it's not...
You stepped in the hornet's nest on that one.
It's not cut and dry. It's not, you always do this. Bible,
because you look at what Canada's doing with their...
I agree.
Their killing pods. You got people that have no business ending their lives, and you're going to eventually have the government or insurance companies say, it's better.
Yeah, it's better. You know what? And it might not even be directly ordering. It might be like, well, the counselor says that this might be, this might be a better option for you. You really should consider this.
Are you saying that me personally?
I'm saying in general, like, you could hype it. You're the one better. Here. You're the one here.
It's better now.
So
say goodbye.
Just saying that what we perceive as mercy might not actually be mercy, because the Lord may yet have a plan for those individuals. Okay. We don't know.
Right.
And our mercy might seem merciful, but might end up being cruel in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a measure.
So there's actually the whole philosophical discussion. I think we're all on the same wavelength here, but this whole philosophical question goes beyond the scope of Fernando III. However, this does relate deeply to what we're talking about here, especially in warfare. So there's a couple more comments here that I want to put up before we move on to who King Fernando of Castile was. Paraphrasing Jonathan Pregu, I probably not original to him. Civilization is what you do with your young men.
How you teach them.
Civilize them?
You civilize. If you teach them civilize, if you teach them to be barbaric. And it counts on what they're how they're taught, what their deal is. If they're taught to be weak, then you have a weak society. If they're taught to be strong, but with a stern hand, but yet merciful, then they're taught to be strong and merciful.
Okay, so just a real quick, this is the way I understand mercy, grace, and justice. Justice is the fulfillment of the law. You have the law, it gets fulfilled. Somebody breaks the law, they get justice. That's a judgment that has been done. And the reason why we have judges is because it's supposed to be that the judge will look at that and say, this is a borderline case. You know, there's extenuating circumstances or whatever the situation here. This is a first offense, blah, 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 whatever the deal is. And because of that, I'm going to go lighter on, or this is a repeat offender, just kept on, come back in. We're going to throw the book at him, right? Full extent of the law. So there is the mercy aspect is not receiving what you're due. Your due justice, your due punishment. You're not receiving that. Grace is receiving what you're not due. So I am not, I get mercy from God and saying, okay, you're not going to get the punishment. But then I also get grace from him when I come up short on things. He fills that in. Sort of like
in the gap.
I describe this to my kids as saying, it's like putty. You know, you got this wood, you got this damage that's there to this strip of wood, and you want it to make it straight and flat. You got putty that will fill it in. That's like the grace of God coming in and filling it out. And that's only there because of the operation of Jesus and his work on the cross, which is another big thing, to fill that in. And that's the only way that can happen, both grace, mercy, and then you get peace as a result, because then you have a restored relationship with him. So there's another comment here. Protestant believer said, Islam justice is way different from Christian justice.
Yep.
Okay.
You got the perspective of justice. What are the actual laws? What does Sharia actually say?
Thank you for the segue. I was not going to show this until later, but we've already put it up. Justified war. Now, next week, we're going to have a guest, David S., and he's going to be at the conference that's coming up. You want to give a plug for the conference, by the way?
It's the upcoming Seek and Share Truth Conference 2025. That is in Youngstown, Ohio, at a church there. We will have multiple speakers all engaging with Islam, teaching how to engage with Islam, atheism, Jehovah's Witness, Mormonism, bunch of different topics, even into culture itself, how to deal with that. So if you guys want to, go ahead and get your free tickets. And if you can, donate, help us out. But mostly, go get your tickets. You can either get them online or in person. I recommend
What's the name of it again?
Seek and Share Truth.
Okay. So, and when is it going to be?
That is at the last day of July to the 3rd of August.
So it's coming up real quick.
It's coming up real quick.
Okay.
It's less than 2 months.
And you are
out.
going to show some things online, video-wise, but not everything is going to be
There
shown,
will be,
correct?
Yep. There will be some of the teachings that will not be able to make it online. So you can only get them in person. And we'll definitely be doing some outreach activities as well. So we're going to equip and then demonstrate how to do it. So, and those you cannot do so well online.
No, and there's going to be a debate there too.
Oh, yes,
for the first time.
debates.
That I'm looking forward to.
That should be fun.
There's going to be some people there that I'm bringing
people there.
I'm bringing my popcorn, man. I'm bringing my popcorn because it's going to be
popcorn fun.
It's going to be a good experience.
So make sure to donate so we have plenty of money for popcorn. We will need it, and tissues. We'll definitely need tissues.
I don't know about the tissues.
No,
definitely tissues. Okay, so but you do bring up a good comment, and this is what I was talking about earlier before I so rudely gave a plug, and that is the justified war. So we did with David S. I did a live stream a few weeks ago talking about the just war doctrine and what it is before, during, and after. There's some guidelines to do, and these are things that are kind of built up over time in Western civilization. It's not definitely, you're looking in scripture and stuff like that, but it's partially based on scripture and just kind of common sense and agreed upon methods and guidelines for Western civilization. So now the question is, what is the Islamic side of that? And we're going to dig into it to see if we can discover what are the rules for a just war in Islam. Is it very simple? Is it just like one rule? Is there multiple? Is there conditions that are done? And then look through history. What happened with Muhammad? Did he follow that? Well, I guess
find out
if he's guiding. And then you also have through history and then today. What about a just war concept for Islam today? So all that will be done. So who is King Fernando III of Castile? This guy right here. Many pictures. A pious conqueror. Now, what does pious mean?
Devout.
Oh, good. Marked by showing reverence for God and devotion to divine worship. Is the Webster's dictionary. Actually, it says a deity, but okay, we're going to make it God. Originally, I bet you Webster's original word was God. Capital G. His conquest, this guy right here. So backwards. This guy right here, pious conqueror, and his conquests were driven by a profound Christian faith expressed through asceticism, prayer, mercy, and driven by a goal to advance Christendom. Now, what is asceticism? I'm sure that, there's all scholars in here, so everybody in the chat knows what that is. What is asceticism? I'm going to look at the comments right away. I was going to wait until later, but there's so many rolling through it that would go ahead and do that. We have a truth defender in the house here. So I'm going to put this up because I think I got the...
Youngstown, Ohio is what he's talking about.
Yeah, Youngstown, Ohio, particularly the Mahoning Valley, had a significant history of organized crime, earning the nickname Crime Town, USA.
Yes. Youngstown is known for being gangster sort of style.
Okay.
Very violent.
Good place for outreach.
Hey, they gotta go where the crops are. The field is ready.
That's right. And Protestant believers said, keep the women. Are you talking about as the prize of war?
I'm assuming. Probably was talking about women. We were talking about the rules.
Talking about the conference.
Probably the war.
I hope so. I don't know. I don't think there's anything about that with the conference. Truth Defender said, book recommendation, when is it right to fight? Dr. Morley, Robert A. I don't know. The guys might be dyslexic because he's put his last name first. Just kidding. No, that's fine. That's the correct way to cite. So, yeah, that'd be an interesting one. Maybe you can give us some of your insights as we go forward and we talk about this, because that's what I was saying. I was hoping that we could get some veterans in here to give their insights, because these are the guys that actually had to work with it, right?
Had to deal with
especially if there was a specific instance. Gosh, I don't know. It'd be tough, wouldn't it?
Obeying. And the problem is if we're talking recent veterans, definitely dealing with Muslims, you might be thinking you're being merciful to the kid, but the kid might have a bomb strapped to him because Islam doesn't care.
And the hardest thing for me would be knowing if that person dies, not knowing Christ.
So, yep, you either
that would make me hesitate.
You either kill the kid, save people, or let the kid go, and maybe or maybe not. So don't know, and it's not always shown.
So Yusuf said, seek and share is awesome. My family and I attended last year, and we enjoyed it and learned a lot. May God continue to use you all for his glory. Yay!
Yes, it was fantastic to see in person. That's one of the cool things.
Do you know how to say his last name? I know I'm going to butcher it.
Nope.
Well, Yusuf will work.
Yusuf will work.
Unless we get a good pronunciation. And he added, sadly, I will have to miss this year.
Aww.
I wonder if I met you. The previous, I might have. But maybe in a future conference, I can run into you again. And then Skipping ahead. Do you think, man, we're going to be, I wasn't kidding about the 14 hours. We're going to have 14 hours with all these guys. Do you think George W. Bush was trying to make people associate Christianity with hypocrisy and greed during the Middle East conflicts?
Nah, I don't think it was that deep.
No, I wouldn't.
It might have resulted in it, but I don't think that was a plan.
So this was a W?
W.
So he was the second, right? So that was with Afghanistan, and there was after 9/11, I think there was a real
an outcry.
There was a real outcry when that hit. And for just a few days, a week or so, this country was unified in a way I don't think I've ever seen before.
Yeah, very short-lived though.
It was short-lived, unfortunately.
Shocked
but
how short-lived
it was. And the problem with democracies, and you even see this in the game Civilization, and the problem with democracies is you do get war fatigue. So there could be a lot of hoorah at the beginning, but then after a while.
Well, he also really pandered to Islam a lot. So it wasn't so much that Islam was the cause behind this, and I think this led to a lot of mistakes done during the war itself. With strategy is he wasn't fighting against an ideology; he was trying to fight against countries, and in the end, you're fighting against Islam as an ideology, not against countries.
You say that as a general rule of thumb, you're always fighting the last war. During World War II, at the beginning, we were fighting the First World War with the Maginot Line and things like that. So, and then Prad said, don't turn your back to a jihadi.
No.
Yeah, 100%. Asceticism. There we go. Definition is lifestyle care. Oh, you got this. Almost looks like a cut and paste, brother. Is this you? Is this inspired by the Holy Spirit, or is this inspired by Webster's? Asceticism. That's cool. That's cool. I don't. As long as it's true, I don't care what the source is. Is a lifestyle characterized by abstinence from worldly pleasure through self-discipline, self-imposed poverty, and simple living, often for the purpose of pursuing spiritual goals. So I was raised Catholic, and that was a big part of Catholicism there for, there's an extra notch of holiness. If you can deny, you take a vow of poverty, not normal people, but I'm talking about people like nuns, monks, or priests taking a vow of poverty. And you're saying, I am disassociating myself with worldly goods and so forth like that. And then I became Protestant. I thought, that's a bunch of bunk. But I don't know. I think there's some value in that. You look at how we can be so greedy and so fixated and owned by the products that we own. We think we own the products.
There's advantage of some things that the Catholic Church does teach on the core level, underneath everything. The problem is they have a big habit of raising that to a requirement, and that's where it goes too far. Is now it's a requirement for salvation. Yeah. It's a requirement in order to get more holy. You're now more virtuous than other people. That again speaks against what the Bible teaches.
Okay, so how many people are owned by? I get glued to my phone. I don't know about you. It's just like it's there. I feel naked leaving without it. So, putting that aside, the whole point of fasting is a biblical principle. It's in the New Testament. Flatulence is
not
flatulence. Self-flatulation.
I know where you're going with it, but again, it's not. Neither of those two. Neither of them.
Well, we'll keep that one for the blooper reel. So self-flatulation is not, although King Fernando III was known for that. He would do that, and there's some other crusaders here that would
really very dangerous.
Well, it may have contributed to his earlier death too.
That would make sense. Let's be honest: if you're going out to war, it's not the most sanitary stuff, and if you're beating the crap out of yourself or cutting yourself in some way, shape, or form, you got a high chance of infection, and that would be death.
Self-flatulation. Okay, yeah, I'm not pronouncing it right, but you know what I'm talking
Jack Ray. Get him! Don't let him go away with that.
This is going to be the blooper reel. Okay, he's playing the Saudis. Okay, I've got to move on. Great comments, but we're going to keep going. So back to Fernando III of Castile, and put him up. His conquests were driven by, like we said earlier, profound Christian faith, and asceticism was part of it. So he had tried to live a simple life, and the beating himself up. We'll just go with that.
And occasional intentional
Yeah, okay. And prayer and mercy, Lord, have mercy on this guy next to me, and driven by a goal to advance Christendom. That was a big part of it, and that's what led to, I believe, his canonization. And he stood out as unique among other kings, although the other kings were trying to walk. Some of them were walking a Christian life, not all of them, I guess, but he was marked as definitely being one of them. He unified Castile and Leon. So these are two kingdoms that came down, and they have Leon, Castile, Galicia. Eventually, Portugal was there, but then you had Aragon, not Aragorn. No, not Lord of the Rings. And others up there. I forget there's a couple other kingdoms in the north. But these kingdoms came and went, especially during these, because the kingdom of Castile and Leon were split multiple times through their history due to dynastic divisions, inheritance, disputes, and political strategies. But when he united them, they had never split again. So to this day, they've been united, and was because of the work that he had done. He also defeated the Almohad Empire. Now, although it was another 250 years after his death that Granada fell in 1492, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, he pretty much beat him back and out of Spain, except for that pocket in the south. So it was only a hilly region that they were in. And basically, it was really kind of ironic because the Muslims, when they came in, they pushed the Christians all the way back to Asturias. And there was a hilly region. They said, these hillbillies are not going to do anything. And the hillbillies came back and beat them.
Don't ever turn your back on hillbillies.
That's right. Just like jihadis. And they came down and beat him. And he let the final blow to push him back down to Granada. So why study this obscure corner of history? Something that happened over 700 years ago. Why waste our time doing that? Is there any value in this at all? And is there something that we can pick up out of it? And I'm not just talking about some obscure thing. Is there a model here that happened in King Fernando III's life, or even during the Reconquista of Spain, when that's that 800-year conflict that happened? Anything that can be pulled out of that. I'm going to be checking the chat and see what you guys have to say for that. And another question I have is, how do you see the culture war happening in your life? So this is a bit of a culture war with Fernando III and the whole Reconquista too. Now, this is a physical culture war. It got physical, right? Mm-hmm. But for our own culture war in the West, how does that affect your life, or does it at all? So that's an open-ended question. I had to ask you that question before we.
Absolutely does.
How does that affect?
How does the culture war affect? Well, it heavily leans pro-Islam on one side and doesn't the other. So I'd say if you're ushering in Sharia law, that's not a good thing. Definitely, because I'd be put to death under it. Unquestionably.
Okay. That's one aspect of the culture. That's one front, I would guess you would say, of the culture war. There's another front of the culture war that is secularism, atheism, that is denying God. And it's not just, we're just denying God. It's now when you knock off that anchor, when you throw that anchor off and you go adrift, you can see how far, just in a few generations, we're drifted. We don't even know what a man and a woman is.
Nope.
Some of the most basic stuff that a 3-year-old would know, we can't define now. A Supreme Court justice can't define what a 3-year-old.
And that is a true shame.
Knock that off totally. So that would be my questions for you. And I will be checking the chat for that. But we're relating then, Fernando III, is there any applications that could be done for us for that? So historical context. To prime the pump for a future chat, I got another question for you. So I'm throwing all these things out there. Hopefully you remember what they are. What would you do if you inherited the throne of Castile at the same time that Fernando, at the time of Fernando, not that you're competing with Fernando, but if you inherited the throne like he did, what would you do? So, okay, well, how would you be able to answer that question without getting historical background first to find out what the situation was? Well, the first thing right off the bat is, do you know how old he was when he got the throne?
I do not.
16.
16.
Might have been 17, depending on when he was born. Okay, could have been 18. They're not too sure about his birth. It was either 1099 to 1201, but somewhere in there. And I think it looks like it might be 1201. He was born, so when he took the throne later, we know that date. He was either 16 or 18 when he got the throne. Now, I don't know about you. When I was 18 or even 16,
I was not in a mental state to rule a nation.
Yeah. So he did have some help. But let's take a look at it. And I'm going to start with a quote because the situation is not, it's two-sided. One is what's happening on the royal side in the court, and the other side is what's happening with the Moors or the North African Muslims as they come in and are doing some things down the south. So this is a quote from the book Defenders of the West. After El Cid and his generation had passed. Now, remember when we did El Cid, we're talking about his great conqueror. He took Valencia. There's a bunch of inroads that he had made. But after he and his generation passed, almost sounds like Methuselah. When he passed, Amir Ali of the Almoravids from 1106 to 1143 saw his chance. In the words of the Chronicle of Alfonso the Emperor, quote, like a serpent thirsting in the summer heat, the Amir raised his head from across the Straits of Africa and summoned all his princes, commanders, and soldiers together with my Arab mercenaries, he said, and many thousands of horsemen, crossbowmen, and great companies of foot soldiers. Then they invaded the Christian north of Spain, attacking and devastating, massacring and slaughtering the Christians. Not content with the devastation he had caused, Ali commanded his generals to send back to Africa any of the Christian warriors, boys, and virtuous women and girls whom you capture. So that's very strange that would be a kind of principle, a rule. This guy must have been an outsider just to send captives back like that.
Nah, those are slaves.
As slaves.
They're fair game.
I'm assuming that none of the boys or girls were a certain kind of slave, keeping this family friendly.
Oh, no, they totally were.
Adult actions.
The
involved.
boys, definitely the boys, following the way of Muhammad, and definitely the women, definitely. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. In fact, the only one of just a sneak peek of the rules of war in Islam, one of the concepts is not to kill the women and children, to try to avoid it. Not because it is humanitarian in any way, shape, or form, but because they sell better alive than they do dead.
Remember that. We need to add that to our rules of
That's definitely in there. Because
they for next week, I'm saying. Remember that. We bring that up as
because they'll bring up Muslims today will bring up saying, oh, no, Muhammad forbade, the killing of women and children. Look how virtuous he was. And it's like, no, the reason why he did that is because they sell better alive than they do dead. And even when there were times that they were killed, the pagan women and children were killed, it was, they were among them. So who cares? They're just of them. So they're of the same branch. So you can kill them. It's just preferable not because you can get more money.
Okay. So let's take a quick look at the map. Now, we talked about the Almohads and the Almoravids in the past. These were different upsurges of strict Islam that came into across from Northern Africa into Spain. These are like revival movements, so to speak, within Islam that got a hold of these wayward princes that were around that had singing women, actually listening to women sing, actually having musical instruments, drinking alcohol, those. Yes, it was total debauchery. Dogs and cats sleeping together. It was awful. So the resurgence that had happened came in waves, and it usually came from the Atlas Mountains in North Africa. And you could see the orange and the dashed orange, those are two different movements that had happened there, but they had gone up to Spain and even a little bit further. This doesn't really show the Reconquest because that area in Spain then varied over time. But this is, with this, I got a bit of a timeline. So remember, we're talking about all these guys, they're kind of overlapping in terms of events. Let's look at El Cid. Was down at the bottom.
Yep, El Cid did.
So he dies. El Cid dies in 1100. And so this is a period of 100 years before Fernando III is born. And he is born right around 1200s, right around here. He's born and then he dies up here at this time. Spoiler alert, he dies. Okay, so...
Oh no, I could never have predicted that someone that was born in the 12th century or 13th century would die by now.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Who knew? Who knew? So into this, Fernando III was born. He was not the son of Alfonso VIII. So you got these guys that are happening here. Alfonso VIII becomes king in 1160. And the Battle of Larcos, he gets his butt kicked in the Battle of Larcos. And then Ferdinand is born at 1200, and then he has his life here. We're going to zoom up on his life on another chart to do that. Now, plug. The book, The Healing Stone, does cover this time period that's in there, and it also hits a key point that was the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa that we're going to talk about in a minute here.
And where can we get this book?
I'm glad you asked. I'm actually looking for right there. So you can get it on Amazon, and it is a Christian science fiction historical book. So it does cover both aspects, and it's the first of a series. So time travel is involved, but it also try to keep it historical. So the idea of this is that you do learn the history, and in a good way. It's fun. It's an enjoyable book. The point is the history is only a backdrop. The point is the story. And there's Christians involved. You're not going to get hit upside the head with the Romans Road on or anything like that. The story is king. And there's a progression that happens in this book that follows to Africa 150 years later with the Princess of Mali, and then the fall of the Aztec Empire, and it keeps on going like that. So it hits other things. But this is also a good book that you could use if you have a Muslim friend. I think that would be good influence for that. Or somebody who looks at the Andalusia as being Muslim Spain as being a wonderful place where it's golden age, that everything happens.
Not even close.
No, that you get to see
close to reality
in novel form that's not the case. And sometimes it's a lot easier hitting the novel than it does a dry history with timelines and so forth. So Fernando III of Castile was not the son of Alfonso VIII. He was of his predecessor.
Mm-hmm.
I thought at first he was. He wasn't. He was a grandson of Alfonso VIII. Ferdinand III's mother, Brogenia of Castile, was the daughter of Alfonso VIII and Eleanor of England. I do have, put this up here. So this is a bit of an eye chart, but you see all these people here. We're starting with Fernando there, daddy, mommy, and then over by Eric, you have his grandparents. There will be a test following after this, but no, the main point of this is his family life, although he was a prince and eventually a king, did not go smoothly. After Bernagia's marriage to Alfonso IX was annulled in 2004 it was basically...
2004?
I'm sorry.
Wow, that's
1204.
Recent. That's recent. Wow. Okay, never mind about the people dying.
He was like 3 years old when mommy and daddy split up. And she took Fernando to her father's court in Castile. So there was a big fight. Daddy goes to Leon. Daddy's the king of Leon. Mommy then is the daughter of the king of Castile, right? And she has the boy. She's got custody. Maybe he's got visitation rights on the weekends. But they're split like that. Fernando later becomes king of Castile. Now, this is the interesting part. His mom and his dad really didn't like each other. And his dad really disliked the father-in-law, the king of Castile. The king of Castile dies. Mommy says, there is a brother of hers who takes over, and he's a king for like 3 years, and he dies. You know how he dies?
No one does.
No, they do. A tile from a roof slid off, hit him in the head, and he died.
Okay, that's right up there with the caliph being assassinated during prayer.
Yeah, just about as
that
bad.
smells
so
fishy.
He dies, and word doesn't go. It's kept secret. Word doesn't get over to Daddy in Leon, because if Daddy finds out that the king died, that's open territory. He can take the kingdom. So the son is with the daddy at the time. Fernando is with the daddy at the time, and she says, "Oh, he should come home now." So he comes home
to him.
She is essentially queen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "Listen, this is rough territory. Things are really bad around here with what's going on down south and everything. We need a man." And although he's 16, my son's only 16 or 18, he should be that. I'll just tell him what to do on the side so that, under my control and stuff. So he becomes king then. And Dad, Dad says, well, I have this here. Oh, I got to have it here. So in just a few years after his victory in Las Navas de Tolosa, Alfonso VIII dies, and then his first son takes it. He dies. Fernando was most likely 16 years old when he took the throne in 1217. His father, Alfonso IX, King of Leon, declared war on his son within the year.
Very dysfunctional family.
After Fernando mobilized his forces, he replied the following to his father in a letter: "I cannot strike you because you are my father and my lord. So I'm prepared to sit here and suffer with my troops until you come to your senses." So after his father...
Good son.
After he gets a good son. After his father did not have... After this, his father did not have the political support to rally for war, so he capitulated and made a treaty with his son.
What a big surprise.
Yes.
Your son's decent. You're not. We want your son as king.
So that's what your family looks like. Because remember, you're going to be sitting the throne here. That's what your family looks like. And then you've got what's happening down south with the Almohads. Now they're falling apart. Their kingdom's fighting. You've got two emirs that are fighting each other, but there's still a clear and present danger.
Uh-huh.
You are 16, or at the most 18, hitting the throne. What would you do? So
I'll answer that.
You'll answer that, and then I'm going to take a look. Go ahead and take. I'm going to take a look at the comments. Go ahead.
Build up alliances with neighboring Christian nations. As long as they are fighting among themselves, keep that going to the best of your ability. Eventually maybe offer aid to one side, then flip to the other side. As long as they're divided, fighting among themselves, and don't, unite against you, you're in a much better position. And hopefully they end up weakening each other, where then you can take control. But at the same time, I would have been sending envoys over to Rome, calling for a crusade at the same time, so we could launch a crusade when they're weakened and capitalize on that. Okay, so another question for the chat. That's just can you have a crusade if it's not in the Middle East? If it's not in the Holy Land, can you have a crusade? Don't answer that question. I know you know the answer. Anyone that's been watching this series should know the answer. Anyone who's watching this series would know the answer, but it's okay. It's a little bit obvious. But can you have, because it's a common misconception. So what, I'm going to check chat again. So we got some, I know we have some answers here. Protestant believer said, I would have started a crusade. What he would have done. Yes, start a crusade, but I would have timed it better. Timed it better in terms of? They are divided right now, but if they are still in a strong position, if we were to launch a crusade immediately, then they might unite under one banner and cause an issue. You need to weaken first, keep them divided, weaken, then send in the crusade. Okay. It should be an easy cleanup. The crusade's more of a cleanup job. Well, one huge advantage that Fernando
had here in Spain versus what the Crusaders had in the Middle East is he had resources.
Yep.
He had supply lines
He's
that were
right there. That's his nation. He's already got that.
Yeah, he wouldn't have to go through the Mediterranean, through foreign lands to get his supplies or rely on whatever the locals had. And you know what the Middle East get supplies, where he did have that. So yes, and Jack Ray agreed, and he also said, hitting prime, avoid roof tiles hitting me. Yes, can you believe that? Took him out. I almost wonder. It almost sounds like going to be an assassin. I bet they looked to see if there was an assassin.
That's
up there.
That's a good question.
Make it look
That's
like
very convenient.
Yeah, but you'd have to be your aim would have to be so good. And then he mentions Baltic Crusades. Okay, so this would be an answer to crusades being called for areas that are other than the Middle East. And in the book Defenders of the West, some of the other defenders that come up after this are those in the Baltic region. Skanderbeg is one, and some others there as well. Vlad is another. Those things aren't tight. No, they're not. And they could, and that's where you could see if you're Southern California, they have a lot of tiles up there too. Yes, this is why you think Lithuania formed a union with Poland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bad timing. Bad timing on the Crusaders' part.
Yeah.
Because it drove an alliance. You need to make sure that they are even if they were allied against you, they were too weak to be able to push back. And it would be better if you came in and sort of looked like you were only attacking one side and maybe even benefiting the other side for a bit, so that the other side thought, I can use this, and then sweep both.
Yeah. Yep.
Just my thoughts.
So we had the Battle of Las Navas y Tolosa. This is what his grandfather had fought, a major turning point in the Reconquista, taking this land and then being able to sweep down much further south of Toledo, which was their stronghold, and did break the back of the Almohads for a time. And that's when 100 years, or excuse me, not 100 years, shortly after this battle, Fernando came through and was able to sweep up more. So let's take a look at his timeline. This is tighter. This is just with his life, and you could probably see some key points on here with that. Okay, so
don't press that button.
Don't press that button. That was a bad button. Eject. Where's the eject button? Is there like an eject guest button over here somewhere?
Probably.
So
he won't tell you what it is.
His parents' marriage were annulled. He's like 3 years old, and then Grandpa fights this turning point battle. He hears about it, which is a key battle in. I'm going to keep plugging this as I go. The Healing Stone, key battle in there, and I will see if I had that here. Yes. So in the Healing Stone, there is the battle is mentioned, and I want to kind of paint the picture. One of the advantages of having something like this done in a novel and not just in dry history is that you do hear like firsthand accounts of what it would be. Amidst the taste of dust, the sound of heavy war horses stamping, chainmail clinking, and the sight of spearheads glittering, Alcalde Umberto screeched out the orders to form ranks. Francisco and Sancho fell into formation in the third row of Toledo's militia, shoulder to shoulder, shield to shield, with hundreds of other peons from his city. The sun had crept up over the horizon to light a dust-laden haze. Having plowed with his father, shoveled manure with his uncle, slept on the streets as an orphan, and unfolded steel in Toledo, Francisco knew the taste of dust, as well as a nobleman knew his wines. He knew its quality and its texture. He knew this morning had a new flavor, kicked up by thousands of boots and war horses, a pinch of fear, and soon to be baked in an unforgiving summer sun. It had an aftertaste of death. So the advantage of fiction, being able to pull this out. So his military conquest, we're going to go through this pretty quick, and I will pull up the timeline again so we can use that as reference. his military conquest. Córdoba. This was probably the gem of the Al-Andalus. This was their capital. This is where they conquered and held prisoner the last king of the previous Christian empires. They came in and swept in the 700s. So Cordoba was sieged. It was the Umayyad capital. Not even, it was before the Almohads, before the Almoravids. It was there. It was originally the Visigoth territory, but the Muslims took it over. So it was their capital, symbolic victory over the Almohads. Then in 1246, secured Jayan through persistent pressure, showing strategic advantage. This is another one of these sieges that were almost as deadly to the besiegers as they were to those in Seville. This was another crown jewel. Seville taken out. Now he had to build a naval blockade on the Guadalajara River, capturing the cultural stronghold. The Crónica General de España calls Fernando a king who feared God and loved justice. Now, when the Almohad Empire fell, when you take a look at this timeline and everything, and they eventually fell, Fernando's campaigns dismantled it and its presence. And the only empire he directly conquered was the Almohad Empire, but he obliterated it. At least its presence in Spain, leaving a shell in Granada that was their stronghold until 1492. So where is his mercy in all this? Where did he come through and do this? He was tough as a general, as a fighter, but when he took a town, when he took Cordoba and Seville, he said that they could take whatever they had and go. Talking about the Muslims, if they wanted to stay, they could, but for the most part, he said they could go. I think there's a huge migration, almost on the level of what we had seen with. Not quite to the same scale, but India and Pakistan, when you have the movement of people leaving that region and either going to Granada or across back to Spain. So the Moors are basically returning home.
You mean back to
Africa? Thank you.
I've already said back to Spain. I'm like, wait, the map flipped on me somewhere.
So his battles were rooted in just war doctrine, defending Christendom as a holy duty. He prayed before his campaign, seeing victories as God's will. Fernando has been called the Athleta Christi, champion of Christ, a warrior whose conquests preserved Christian identity. Now, how does his physical warfare tie into our spiritual warfare, or does it? And this is one of the earlier questions I asked. How does this tie into how we're living today? Is this an example that we could look at and say, both his mercy and justice mixed, and his life of prayer and following the Lord, is that a point where we could say, how would we apply that to ourselves?
I say you could apply that very easily to yourselves. And whatever you do full-hearted. Don't do anything half-hearted. And at the same time, measure out mercy to those who work with you, but also be stern when needed.
Yeah, he had to. If he had capitulated and just let things go when they shouldn't have, not only would his territory would have been lost, but lives would have been lost as well during that time. Okay, so we answered the question about mercy. When is the proper time? And I'm going to check comments here. That was already there. This one, I guess. Yes, darn it, Ray, you caught me to the base. Okay, so his legacy lives on, and his name has been used in several places. If you've noticed, sometimes I've slipped and I said Ferdinand instead of Fernando. Both names are used for him. Ferdinand is the anglicized version of Fernando. So if you see Ferdinand of Castile, Ferdinand III of Castile is the same guy as Fernando III de Castile. They're both the same. One's in Spanish, one's in an English version of it. And so Jack, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. And when I found out that this is the guy, Saint Fernando, who was, I didn't realize this until I was reading this book, that he was who the valley was named after. It was like one of those aha moments. But of course, that's because the missionaries had a mission that they placed going up the California coast from city to city, and that's what laid, and that was the San Fernando mission, was where they named the valley after. So yes, you nailed that on the head. Good call. Okay, so that's parallels to our culture. How do we see, and these are questions I guess that would still be remaining. What point do the culture war that we have today, how does that relate to what Fernando did? We are not alone in fighting this battle. It has been raging on for a very long time. So coming up next week, we have the just war conflict with Islam. What is their version of a just war?
Will be vastly different than the just war.
So guys, if anyone here has any background on this and they want to be able to chime in and let us know what their thoughts are on this, we're just going to have to piece this together, because I have not found anything that says specifically, oh, this is the Islamic version of a just war doctrine.
No,
you would think that would be out there. If they're
you got bits and pieces you got to go through. Sure,
yeah, but if they're a religion of peace, that would be like, we got this before you guys did.
Yeah. Well, no.
Okay.
They don't.
So you think it there. So again, please subscribe, like, and share. And if you haven't gotten a copy, you can check out all my books on Amazon and other places. I also have short stories on there as well. Do you have any last comments before we wrap up?
Nope. I will be coming back on tomorrow on my channel for 10 things Muslims should know about Islam.
Yes. Yeah. So what would that be?
Each one of them should cause Muslims to leave Islam and turn to Christianity in one way or the other.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you all for your input. It's been fantastic chat, and we will see you next week.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.